You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the April 26, 2023 meeting of the LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission meeting to order here for April. If you would all please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
I got you. I see.
Joe Haney,
Present.
Justin Keel,
Present.
Michael Rosenbaum,
Present.
Scott Cooley,
Present.
Tom Fath,
Present.
Randy Novak,
Present.
Mark Parkman.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we'll consider the agenda. Is there any additions?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda with one addition. Under old business where we talk about KIPB, we'd like to add John Jones to speak about insurance.
Second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak at this time? Any members of the public on Zoom who would like to speak? Seeing no one for public comment. Public comment is closed. Next, we have communications, please.
Communications for March, April. Auditor's office for the treasurer's reports. All the accounts balanced. Harold Argus for claims and allowances publications. Received D&M pay request number 12. USI pay request number 12. Picked up POs from the auditor's office. The president signed them and returned them to the auditor's office. Picked up the mail at the auditor's office, sorted and filed. Deputy auditor, I delivered the resolutions for the transfer of 421 allocation area 1 to 421 allocation area 2, which has been done. Communications with JBC Rail regarding the BOT agreement and communications with JBC Rail regarding preparing the first pay request for the Ready Grant. The auditor's office was preparing some forms and needed land transactions of the RDC and easement transactions and costs of those transactions. So that information was transmitted to the auditor's office. We prepared the capture letters for the TIF districts for 2023 and we'll distribute those yet this month. We have, there was a plan commission hearing just for your information on the 421 Partners PUD primary plat. Responded to the Friedman and Associates for the copy of the December 22 minutes and Guy helped me prepare that. Submitted the draft Ready Grant pay request to the Northwest Indiana Forum and had them review it. And then they sent us some corrections and we made those corrections and we'll submit that by the due date, which is tomorrow. The assessor submitted the quarterly appeals information. So if anybody wants to see that, I can forward that information, but I did not see any that were particular to our TIF districts. And then Paul Vincent said he wasn't going to be able to be here today. And he wanted me to update the group email to include Amanda Pinks, who's here on his behalf in the back. And I did that as well. And that's the end of the communications.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to consideration of approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. I heard 7. Any opposed? Okay. All right, next we have treasurer's report.
The treasurer's report is as follows. The balances after today's claims are paid are $186,149 in US 421 TIF 1, 0 in US 421 TIF 2, KIDC $66,398, 39 North $73,179. End of treasurer's report.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to accept the treasurer's report. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Next, we're going to move on to claims. First, we're going to start with the KIDC TIF for a total of $5,543.25. Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Next, the US 421 TIF district for a total of $3,500.68.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Next year, 39 North for a total of $1,000 even.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any nays? Very good. Next, we have a 421 project claim for D&M excavating totaling $56,298.44.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Our final one here, Kingsbury Industrial Park Railroad Bridge Improvement Project for JBC Rail, totaling $216,355.63.
Motion to approve, then I have a question.
Second.
Get a motion and a second. Please, your question, sir.
I think he's gonna answer it.
Yes, sir.
Quick question, he's putting the bill in for the materials and everything ahead of time, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. The work hadn't started, because
No, sir.
the council's gonna pre-fund that.
Yes.
Just,
Gonna
I
hit that.
just wanna,
I was going to hit that on 39.
I know you
discussion.
were, sorry, I appreciate it.
Has the project went out to bid yet? Did the project go out to bid?
It did.
When did it bid?
2018 or 19. It was the
Nothing.
build, operate, transfer agreement with JBC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Next, we're going to move on to old business. First up, the 421 I-94 TIF project update. Mr. Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The utility project's winding down. We were able to get corrected with the help of our attorney and Mitch Bishop, the easement question that was causing a delay with NIPSCO. So that's been signed. I would ask that the board sign that today so we can get it back to them and get this project closed out. I think we're pretty close to wrapping it up. Once we're done, we'll have some kind of something over there, groundbreaking, ribbon cutting, something to happen. I know Mitch is gonna talk a little bit about here after I'm done. There was some question about some water utility taps on 300 and should we incur the cost? People haven't asked for them yet. And normally I would say that, it's probably wise to continue, except we'd have to make some roadway improvements if we rip it up. And I believe the amount was, I'll turn it over to Mitch so he can kind of clarify it. I just want to make you aware and, to make a decision and to make sure that we have enough money to take care of it. That's all.
Yeah, it was sewer taps
Sorry.
along County Road 300 North, the north side of the road. There was, I believe, 7 houses. And so the issue is, I forget what change order it was, but change order 4 or 5, I believe. The board did approve to have that work done. That'd be taking from the main, a lateral to the property lines. However, those individuals, from everything I heard, and I spoke to, I think 4 or 5 of the homeowners now myself, they don't want it. So they don't want to pay the extra costs from the property line taking the main to their home. However, we did approve the change order for that work to be taken care of. So I guess if we don't hook that up and that work's not done, I think it's 4,000, roughly about 4,000 a home. So it would save us 28,000. However, in the future, if they sell their house, maybe the new owner would like to hook up. And the sewer is, again, it's both to the west and to the east of them, so it's all surrounding sewer and water is there. So I guess we don't have a line item for the paving. Now, we don't have to pave the whole road. However, we would have to cut the road in 7 spots to get the sewer from the south side of the road to the north side to those property lines. So we don't have a line
Cutting
up.
the road in now.
What's that?
How many spots are we cutting the road in now?
I'm really none.
A few potholes, that was.
Yeah.
So there's nobody else on that side of the road tying in voluntarily?
There's only 7 houses on that side of the road.
And nobody wants to tie in on that side?
At least 5 people. I spoke to 5. 5 out of 7 that I know for sure don't.
I believe there's 5 residents and 2 businesses.
Right.
Because there's the greenhouse and the landscaper next to him, I believe.
Yeah.
But they're the ones on the north side of 300 North between Bozak and 950. The one on the south side wouldn't be a big deal because the force main is right on the edge of the south side of the road. But we would have 7 crossings if we tied all 7 of them in, unless somebody's septic fails or they decide they want to tie into city sewer. They're not going to have it. It's going to be right to the edge of the property line and nothing more. The ones on 950, because we were redoing the road anyways, it made sense. If these homeowners on 300 on the north side aren't going to tie in anytime soon, then why have 7 more areas to put back asphalt? So,
There's definitely cost savings of around 30,000 if we don't do it, plus more because the patching of the road.
But then you got 7 different people patching the road at 7 different times. Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah.
If they do it in the future.
So we're putting it to the board. No.
Are we short 4,000? Are we short the money?
No, I believe we do have the money. We approved the change order. But would there be additional change order for the paving? Yeah.
If it makes sense, why don't we get a number from Reeve Riley
Why don't we talk to the
Highway?
superintendent and see if Reeve and Riley can.
They're going to be out there for 950 anyway.
They maybe
we
swing
could
by
probably
and-
we could probably get a price really quick. For
You don't pay me to be out there regardless.
on the 4th, I believe, right, or the 8th. The 8th.
Okay,
they're
so
gonna
what
be
if we
out there.
get a number from them, as long as we can, if it falls within the budget, then why not?
I'd say the change order is already there, so
But not the paving.
Not the paving line item.
I don't know, that might, what's your guess?
I have paving line items, just not
for that.
math wasn't in it.
Right.
In the change order.
Yeah.
What's your guess? I mean,
don't think
I
it's
don't know,
that bad.
10 grand,
And that,
you guys.
bring them up.
okay.
I would say 5-10 grand would be my guess.
Yeah, I would say you're probably in the 10 to 15 range for asphalt patching back for those 7 lots.
And then we would never have to do it in the future.
Correct.
It's already-
And then if you repave the road, you've got a smooth surface, you're just gonna have 7 crossings through there, but you're already gonna have 3 or 4 anyways down on the west end where the water goes across and the sewer goes across, so. You're just adding an additional 7, but while we're there, so.
And I take it those 7 homeowners were not interested in connecting?
At one point in time, USI had talked to all of them, and I don't believe any of them said yes.
And I spoke to 5 out of 7. And all 5 that I spoke to couldn't reach the other 2. They all said no at this time.
So my question would be, Michigan City Sanitary, did they give us some money for this project?
Not sanitary.
Water did.
Water did?
And then sanitary gave us this.
Just from the outside looking in, why are we paying, why is the county paying for something that Michigan City Sanitary is gonna benefit from? I mean,
We just paid $4.5 million to run this whole thing. It's all Michigan City.
for the development of that whole end,
Right.
that which helps the county. Here we've got existing houses that already have a tax base. We're not gaining anything. I mean, I get the big picture. I'm trying to understand how it's worked in the past. Maybe that's the way
My
to do it.
concern is more with the road, getting those taps over there and it's done and it's put back instead of being a Mod Podge in the future, because depending on the contractor they get to go in there, it could be.
In the long run, personally, in my opinion, it makes sense if, you know,
I think we could
to at least have it available.
have a
It's
discussion
there.
with
You get-
Reith and Riley and the highway department and see if that, you know.
I mean, it probably improves the value of the property in the long run. I see where you're going, Commissioner Parkman, but, sometimes we're gonna think through, think a little bit further down the road. And yeah, I agree. Michigan City Sanitary said no, water said yes. So we've been very amenable to whatever the water department wanted, but the sanitary said no. But, I think we have the 10 grand, to do it.
Lines coming down here and going this way.
Each one of these would just be a lateral, though. It would not be a main for any future
No.
expansion or anything
Nope,
else.
just to the
Lateral.
individual benefit, but we did that for everybody else who wanted it.
Okay.
So we're trying to be, I guess,
And
trying to be consistent with the idea of the project.
sounds good. Thanks.
That's,
Yeah, all the homes and everybody else is served, essentially.
yeah, we came a long way. It started out, nobody wanted to be served. We've come full circle. So what's the pleasure of the board? Should we just work with Reith Riley to see if we can get a number and see what that is?
Leave it up to the board, whoever wants to make a motion, or if
I would
you don't.
like to see this all done now.
Okay.
Cost, today's cost. I'd rather see this done now at today's cost and then have a smooth road for the long-term benefit of that road. Because that's an excellent point, is that if we start allowing them cutting it up, we have different times, different people doing different, the quality, we just don't know the quality, but we know the quality now because we know the contractors now. So I would like to see it done, and if I need to make a motion, then I would make a motion of that.
So under further discussion, though, we're not repaving the whole road. We're still going to have 7 strips, so it's not necessarily going to be an even road.
But we already have some strips.
Right.
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 And if we were to not spend it on these sewer laterals, what could those funds be used for instead?
Just redevelopment purposes. We used the bond money first, and the council awarded the
Some air.
AARP. Some people AARP fund. So that would be whatever the uses for that were allowable. So water, sewer, sanitary. I think some broadband stuff, whatever I can't recall off the top of my head what that legislation allowed for. But it would generally go back into the pile for the county county council to redistribute.
So we would give it back to the county's ARP fund then?
Yes, it wouldn't stay with wouldn't stay in the, with the redevelopment commission.
Just a quick point of clarification, Mr. Rosenbaum. Could you specify, because we had a couple different options here, whether if we can get it done within what's still the budgeted amount, if there's enough leeway there, versus what type of up to additional amount perhaps, if it's going to fall outside of what's already been budgeted?
So the motion is going to be to do the 7 laterals and also to get the cost for the paving, and then we would have to approve those costs at the next meeting. Because I can't say up to what number, because even though we have an estimate of 15, I don't know that we're not going to have it or that we will have it. So
Sure.
To clarify, the contract that I currently have with you guys has paving in it. There's just no, in the change order that we did that you guys approved for these taps, there wasn't asphalt in that change order. There's quantities in there that pays by the square yard for the asphalt. So it's already in the bid at the old rates of asphalt a year and a half, 2 years ago in this bid. So it would just be whatever square yardage of trenches we have to patch back would be on there. So some of those I think we're gonna underrun. Some of them we've already overran. So it's a line item on there. So it's already in the contract, it's just gonna be over or under on your line items.
When you think about $10,000 in the scope of the project, it's very de minimis. of a $4 or $5 million project.
And he said at the old prices, which is gonna be a break compared to what we're gonna get.
That's what the current one is. Do we know if we wait until the next meeting, is that going to be, how is that timeline wise for getting these laterals in versus where you're at now? Because you guys are moving fairly quickly out there.
So,
right
because
now.
if you need an additional 10,000, then we can say that, if that's what we're looking to do.
And we're fine. Well, we can wait till next month on that. No problem. Yeah.
We have the 28 already budgeted, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying it could be 10 or 15.
Additional.
We don't have that budgeted, or it is potentially budgeted?
Yeah. Well, technically we do, but it's a quantity base.
So if they run out of quantity for the, you understand?
You talk about over and under.
Or anything? I mean, are we anywhere close to that?
I don't
Pretty
know.
close to the end of the contract.
We are.
I think so.
And the end of the contracts, you usually do a final change order, and this would fall probably within that final change order to settle the over-under on that line.
There's already a retainage to cover those, so
Yes. So the question to the board is, should we do those? Yes or no?
I made the motion set to do them. That needs to be second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Proceed. Yes.
You know, the other thing I got that worries me is when we put the laterals, or everything's in place, because obviously the people on the south side don't have as far to go. But everything's in place for these 7. We approved these one time that these were gonna be there. And now we're sitting here going, you know what? They didn't want to do it, now we're gonna pull it out. Something tells me there's a chance we might have to do it in a later, pay for something down the road, because we said we were gonna do it, and now we're changing our mind on it, just to save a few dollars, so.
But if it was a change order, it wasn't originally, we didn't say we were gonna do it originally, did we? If it was a change order?
I think it was something that was left out.
It was left out of the contract. It was one of the Arizona missions,
Yeah,
basically.
Okay.
The drawings weren't in there. It wasn't in the drawings, so.
Basically, we're agreeing to do it anyways.
Right.
Do we know at some point will those property owners be required to tie in if their septics fail, or is
If
that?
septic
The septic
fails,
fails,
that's-
absolutely. They cannot make any repairs or anything to their septic. They have to tie in.
That's Indiana code.
I do have a question. These are gonna be properly capped where it's easy to go and hook up to, so that there's not gonna be any issue. I'm just not familiar, we're not leaving an empty hole there.
This section
not.
through there, it's force main, so it's force main from in front of my office all the way to the other side of 94. So what we're putting in for these houses, they would end up having to put in a pump to match the lift station that the county's put in, and it'll pump into the force main. So it's basically, it's a 2-inch line, it's got a curb stop and a backflow on the edge of the right of way that they would tie onto and go forward. And to what Mr. Novak said, he's kind of close, he lives kind of close, he understands it. Most of the people that live on 300 North there are brothers or sisters to everybody that lives on 950 that got this. So if you didn't do this, you'd probably have
Yeah,
had it.
that too.
Do we have any other further discussion? Very good. There was one point you mentioned, Councilman Novak, in regards to if we do shoot these across the road, it might later on that it would preclude anyone from staying on septic after that if their system fails or needs to be replaced.
So the current statute right now on septic systems, if you're within so many feet of a main, a sewer line, you have to tie in. If you cannot get a permit from the health department to make any repairs or replacement on any systems, you have to tie in, so. And knowing the water table out there, that's why we're running this out there too, because I think the truck stop's on like their 3rd system, Harley's on a couple, so their systems have been failing, and that's some of the urgency to get all this out there, so. It's a matter of time before I think everybody's out there.
Yes, Mr. Parkman?
Just a question, being as it was a 2-inch line that couldn't be pushed under the road
Some of them will be.
instead of cutting the road?
Still have to, the force main is under the road, so.
Okay.
you have to cut that section up.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote then. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, very good. Thank you. Anything else for that item?
Not directly. Well, actually about the finance. So as Ascend Real Estate is, went to the Plan Commission to get that plat approved, so it's time to go visit him for our $75,000. Yes.
Should you need a motion? I'd make a motion that we approve the agreement with Loves for the easement. Don't you need a motion for that?
Yeah, that's coming too.
Yeah.
I thought that was all part of the previous one, though.
No, it's down here under new business A.
I apologize.
So that 75,000 is the money we were waiting on?
We're owed by, Ascend Capital, Ascend Development, the developers. They commented that they were waiting to get their engineering done. Their engineering's done. They got approved for the preliminary plat. It's time to pay them.
Yeah.
Mr. Cooley can help me collect. I'm on it. All right. Another project that we were, that the board may be aware about has to do with a project on 400. And we've had some conversation with the developer at Great Lakes Capital. They're interested in moving forward with the development. It's a office / warehouse on 33 acres. The investment is in the neighborhood of 20 some million. You might recall this from previous discussions about annexation in Michigan City. So working with Sender, we came up with some analysis based on what the developer was looking for. Provided them that, they're looking at it. Appears that we're moving closer to a deal. They're going to have to work with the landowners to get an extension on their option for the property. And I'm sure Jeff's going to be working on that. If they, decide that they're able to do this and move forward based on what the county would be able to assist them with. Hopefully I'll be back here next month to talk about creating a separate allocation area for this particular project, a different bond issue being done for this particular project, and the buyer of the debt being Great Lakes Capital, and that would cover some of the water, sewer, sanitary site development issues on site. And then there might be a potential to, depending on which way they want to evaluate it, that they decide to go the tax abatement route, and then they won't be doing any TIF, and they would be looking for 100% abatement for the maximum term, which is in this instance, because the size I think is 10 years. So they're looking for a value dollar amount to fill a gap in their financing. I know Great Lakes Capital, have worked with them in the past. They're very open book developers, and he'll show you what he's going to make, and he only does projects that make sense.
What's the estimated project cost that they're investing? You remember that?
Over 20 million.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I know I got it somewhere. I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's. If you give me a second, I should know that. Yeah, give me a minute here. Yada yada. Okay. Yes, it's over 20 million. And so it would include a building and 2 buildings, different structures on that 30 acres. I'm also going to double back with Ton and Blank. They proposed a medical use on the property to the south of there. So if we can cobble these together at one time, we're going to be able to knock out utility use for both sites at once and then generate $50-60 million of investment out there. But I'll keep you posted as to the progress. And then if it gets to the negotiating time with the board, we'll bring that information in here and let everybody deliberate on it.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on to KIP?
Not on 421 tonight.
Okay.
Wait, I forgot. We need to have the easement signed.
Yeah, that's under new business 11A.
I just got scolded for that.
Just trying to get it all done. We're a half hour in, and this is it's taking too long for these guys. Okay, that's all for 421.
KIP, please.
Kingsbury Industrial Park, we continue to have lots of leads from the state. They're all 200 plus acre development ideas. They're all rail related. I have another meeting tomorrow with a company that's in the $800 to $1 billion range out there. 200 acres rail user. As was mentioned previous, the bridge project is underway, at least on financially. Mary Jane, thanks to her and her expertise in CDBG grants administration and understanding the federal government and how it works, whipped through those requirements quite handily, whereas I would have ham-handed my way through it and been very frustrated at the process, but we worked through it. Special thanks to the county council for their understanding of cash flows and time for the project. The grants from the state are great. The challenge is that they're 120 days out for payment, and some of these companies are big companies and some of them are small, and not everybody can carry 120 days. And you start looking at bigger projects, well, even like this one, 200 and some $1,000s, that's not fun. So they're gonna, the idea is for them to set aside a pile of money to be used to be drawn down on, and then the RDA grant would backfill that, and the money would be paid back to the council. So special thanks to them for that. We've been working collectively on the CSX switch. You'll recall that Jim Carroll and Ed Limborg had signed an agreement to say they'd repay us the money. Guy and I were reviewing the sidetrack agreement with CSX. There were some items that both Guy and I flagged in there that created a level of concern that we were not anticipating, nor that I believe that we should have to be concerned about. This commission made it pretty clear that you were going to be the financial agent to help move the project along, and that's where my assumption was. There's a little more detail in that agreement, and I would request that the commission approve the agreement subject to the final review of Guy and JBC Rail. Because they are the switcher, there are items within that agreement that were clearly not going to be done by us, but done by the switcher. There are items that were very typical of somebody who's doing and involved in the rail business, but we're not involved in the rail business. And we were the sole, the Redevelopment Commission was the sole signing authority of that document along with CSX. So the recommendation that went back to CSX was, we'd like you to change the language to reflect that the county redevelopment commission is the owner, in fact, but just the financial agent for the front funding of the cash, and that the JBC Rail as a switcher would basically be filled in the contract where there were requirements and opportunities for cost sharing with CSX, as well as some of the insurance requirements that were spelled out in the sidetrack agreement. Guy could probably clarify that word salad I threw at you, but
No, that's true. So the agreement was probably a boilerplate agreement that they use with other folks in the rail business, and we're not in the rail business, and it put an onus on us to maintain areas and to monitor switching and what was going on, and we just need to step back from that. That's really JBC's role, and that's what we're asking to be put into the agreement.
Very good. You'd like a motion to that effect?
I would like a motion to allow for approval of that execution of that agreement, subject to Guy's review and the addition of JBC Rail to the document.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you.
Next item regarding KIP. The board will recall, at least the members who have been retained, about the retainage discussion we had with JBC Rail. They have completed their the IDC grant. It's been done for over a couple of years. They said, "Hey, where's our retainage?" I said, "I need communication from you that it's been completed pursuant to the contract." We received that. I would recommend that the board move to release the retainage that was retained for the project to make sure it was done. Mary Jane, what's that dollar amount?
$50,000, more or less.
So I would be looking for a motion to allow that to be sent to JBC.
Motion to approve payment of the amount that's been retained.
Second the motion.
Question.
Yes.
Please. Did somebody go out and look to make sure it's done?
You know what? I did have,
That knows, because we used to have JT around.
correct.
Yeah.
So what I did ask them to do was to make sure that they no is the answer. But what was asked of JBC was to warrant that they constructed the trackage pursuant to the contract, and that the trackage would be used and be able to be used by not only them as the switcher, but also South Shore on the tracks, and then that's what they affirmed.
Okay.
So,
All right. So that covers it.
All right, thank you.
Do we need to change the motion to make sure that that's in there, or?
No.
Okay, excellent. Just want to be sure.
All right, very good. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Matt, were you going to bring up the easement issue with the other stakeholders at KIP in this part that we were discussing? Or
yeah. So there's been a constant discussion about the roadway and easements and how that should come together. And absent any direct action by this body or the government, I don't know that we're going to get it anywhere on the issue. Those roads are in bad shape, but they're not the county's responsibility. They're not the state's responsibility. They happen to be the responsibility of the adjoining property owners. There's also an additional issue between Mr. Thomas and Mr. Davis regarding access to one of the properties out there. And, you know, we talked with Doug Beege about it. And, you know, has Doug, I don't know that Doug's gotten back to you on how to get that clarified yet, Guy, or what we might be looking for on that. But it's all together and has to do with the way the property was sold and conveyed, that you have these half line ownership and access. So. In order for us to financially participate, and Guy can correct me if I'm wrong, we either have to have permission to access people's property or they have to convey it to us. So there's been some arguments criticism about why isn't the county doing, you know, paving the roads out there? And I said, we don't own them. I think there's some people on this board and certainly others that can remember the fight about just simply Hupp Road. That still to this day has not been satisfied. And, you know, we're going to continue to try and get that sorted out, but absent a request to all of the property owners to say, here's your one time to provide the county an easement for the purposes of public use. You know, I don't have any other ideas on how to make this work. And, you know, it's you know, when Guy and I were talking, it's like either you're all in or we're not doing it. And that's really the best position that we can put forward. You know, we can't be held up or held hostage by one.
The roads aren't even up to, I mean, so it'd be a major undertaking for the
10
county.
million? Is that the number we're at? 10 million?
Million, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just curious if it's an easement rather than, you know, they convey it over to us, let's say, will we still be, I guess maybe this is a better question for Mitch, will we still be eligible for all the grants that we could go after if it's an easement versus the county actually owning it?
My experience is we have to own it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. So,
But technically we could do something if we just had an easement, but it would be our local money.
yeah, we'd have to fund it exclusively ourselves.
In the past, I know, I think it was Jim Kyle that was hired, and we went out there. He surveyed a lot of the property, and we came up with the idea of actually offering tax deductions, tax credits to the owners if they supplied us with an easement. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting. Maybe we could dig all them up. That was Brad Adamski and real estate attorney here in LaPorte, and I don't know if that BG is also involved. I'm not sure. I don't know if we could reenact that, get that back going, and almost have to go door to door, property owner to property owner, get that done. I think. I mean, at this point.
So Matt, if a property owner says, how does it impact us if property owner says, we don't want you near our property? You can't access our property.
And
Does it impact our ability out there?
well, I mean, they theoretically, if they're the owners of both sides of one of the roads, they could say you can't do that, and would force the redevelopment commission and the commissioners into a condemnation, which I don't think anybody wants to get engaged in that. Again, it was costly. It's effective. It'll work. It's just costly and takes time. So the only real resolution is voluntarily providing easements or ownership, fee simple title to these properties that are within the roadways, period. And I don't know that it's fair for the county entities in total to, you've tried a lot of different ways to be accommodating at this location, but, I don't see any other pathway, all in or all out. Really, probably should be the best way to go about it. Guy, would you agree with that strategy?
All the stakeholders need to be involved.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can't be done. And at some point,
What will happen, 200-acre parcel you just got done talking about, and we don't have road access? I mean, what will happen with that? How does that
Guaranteed
go?
road access.
What'll happen is we condemn it if they didn't want to give it to us. I mean, there's
But
first,
what I'm saying is, okay, we're trying to promote that,
right.
and we don't have a road to get to their site that's a decent road. I mean, that's surely gonna affect whether they wanna go out there or not, so we definitely need to get this dealt with, right?
It does affect them. They see it. I'll be out there tomorrow on a site visit, and they're gonna go, "What's up with
Right.
third line?" I'm gonna say, "We're gonna fix it when you're coming in." And then that, puts us a little bit behind the eight ball, but it'll get fixed. It'll just take a while. And, once you go through condemnation, you do the project and you fight it out in court. But the preference would be, stakeholders, here's the meeting, we're gonna have it. We need you guys all to sign this. This is how it's gonna have to operate.
This does happen a lot too, Matt. Like state projects, for instance, when they're doing improvements on whatever roadway or putting a bridge in, a lot of times they find out that they actually don't own. It's not a state highway. The property owners own to the center line of the road, and they have to go through reacquire those properties again at additional costs. I think we're trying to avoid that here as much, but this isn't something that's new. It happens every county. I get calls from Jasper County, the engineer there, and he's run into it a lot in his county roads, that the county doesn't even actually own the road. It's the property owner to the center line. And they have to.
Do we currently plow all the roads, Mitch?
I don't believe so.
No.
I think, but
I don't think in all the roads.
I think they do HUP every once in a while.
Just HUP.
It's real sketchy.
HUP.
Yeah, this HUP. Yeah.
And then some of the owners out there will throw a plow in front of their pickup and they'll plow some stuff. The idea is to get an easement. I don't think we want to buy or own any of it. That's going to take too long. We already have the legal descriptions for first line through fifth line and central. We just need to get everybody to sign over a use easement, or I could work with Guy to get the correct language on a document that says you're gonna give us the right to spend money on your road in front of your property to make it worth more.
Yeah.
Is really what it ends up being. But I don't know how we could do it any other way.
Liability too. I don't understand why someone would want to own a bridge or a road, or somebody dies, it's their fault. Don't make any sense. I don't know why they would hold out.
So, Guy, what would you recommend we do here? Draft an easement release document, or
so I would recommend that we try to have a meeting with the stakeholders, myself, you. I know Doug represents a few of the stakeholders, and sit down and see if we can come to, before we start preparing documents to put in front of them. Because if they tell us to get, then we have to come back and say, they told us to get, and we need another option.
Yeah.
That would be
That's
my
a good idea.
recommendation right now.
Okay, so we'll get a meeting set up with the KIP team and just lay it out there. A handful of years ago, we gave this a shot, and there was not a great level of response. So I think we're due to give it another try. And I think with what's the progress that has been made in between Doug and Limborg and Carol, they exert some influence on some of the other folks out there and can just explain, look, if you're trying, this is not the get rich quick scheme. That is, if they put a road in and somebody buys your property, that's where you're gonna benefit.
Right.
And I think
Just before we have the meeting, though, we're gonna have to get some idea of what we would do for them if we get the easement.
yeah, and
You know what I mean? How this is gonna be a win-win.
And I guess the promise of we're gonna have the ability to pave your road, and when, I don't know, may not cut it. But I'll have to put some rigor in how to finance this, or where local sources can be garnered to do that, and structure some kind of timeline to do it. Or I can just say as simply as deals come to the park, those are the roadways that get paved first. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with that strategy.
It's a good option.
If something ends up on fifth line, then we're doing fifth line or third line or first line or whatever. That needs to be done, but we'll get our heads together before we meet with them.
Very good, thank you. Anything else for KIP? You're ready to move on to 39 North?
This is where we put in for the insurance,
Oh,
so.
Yep,
Hey, there's a page left.
Mr. Sharon.
Can we get one more copy?
Yeah.
Do you have another one of these? Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
evening.
John Jones, Michiana Insurance, here with Stacy Green from my office. And tonight I'm here to talk about railroad liability insurance and property insurance, actually, a bit. The renewal for the county's insurance is May 27th. In doing that renewal, I had invited several carriers to quote the county's property to compete with our current incumbent carrier, Chubb. Chubb currently has the railroad spur listed for $3.5 million on their property schedule at a very reasonable rate. They have not indicated that they would take it off, but the problem would be is if we do not renew with Chubb this year, if we choose another carrier that's more competitive. And I've got some carriers, Travelers and Liberty Mutual, who I think will be competitive. And some of the carriers, and I don't know about Liberty Mutual yet, they're still contemplating the spur. But Travelers, in seeing our property schedule, revisited the fact that they currently extend CGL, Commercial General Liability, out there to the rail and have since 2018. After looking at that underwriter actually went to Liberty Mutual, the old underwriter. We've got a new underwriter now. They said, hey, we did not want to, and in general, Travelers is pushing away from rail. So they have already sent an exclusion notice to the commissioners that said on May 27th, we are going to exclude the rail from liability. So in so doing, I've provided you with two quotes for railroad liability, which is a broad form commercial general liability, and the broadened sections are then professional liability surrounding the risk of the railroad spur itself. This is a full railroad liability policy, not just a short line railroad, even though we're a sidetrack switching operation. The expanded portions of the CGL that are included in this form are Federal Employers Liability Act, FELA. That takes place of work comp for federal railroad employees who are enrolled in the Federal Railroad Retirement Plan. They don't participate in Social Security, and they don't have to participate in work comp. So this would defend us if we were pulled into something where a federal railroad employee had been injured or worse. It also expands into foreign rolling stock coverage to help defend us if in foreign rolling stock is simply rolling cars that are not owned or leased by the insureds.
And so most of them are foreign rolling stock owned by someone else. But when they're in their care, custody, and control, there is some duty to have liability to replace rolling foreign stock and bill of lading contents that may be in that foreign rolling stock. The fourth portion of this that is expanded on a CGL is some pollution coverage. There's some pollution, and all of these are and I shared this with Guy, and he's looked over this contract insurance policy, that they're under exclusions, but then they're a give back right below that exclusion in that, and you look towards the back under definitions in the policy, and you see that there is coverage for some pollution, for FELA, which is very important, foreign rolling stock, and bill of lading coverage. In Indiana, I've had the discussion with Guy as well. There are immunities for government entities at $700,000 per person per occurrence, with a $5 million cap for all persons per occurrence. However, something that occurs on the rail itself would be federal jurisdiction, and I'm not completely sure what the immunities are on the federal side of that. With that said, the common minimum liability limits for rail insurance is $5 million per occurrence and $10 million in the aggregate. I've included that quote in here, and I also, at the time when we first decided we had to produce these quotes, got them to actually offer a lower quote at $3 million per occurrence and $6 million in the aggregate. Given the Indiana state statute, you'd want to have that $5 million per occurrence, I would believe, and Guy can correct me if I'm wrong there. And especially, I think it's a pretty benign risk, if I may say so, but and I say that because others will be in the railroad industry. There's a term that says if you break it, you fix it. So we're named as additional insureds, and I've included that in your packet as well, with JBC, the switcher, contracted switcher, who happens to, and this is a good thing actually, have the same insurance that the quote is before you, Aspen. So Aspen insures JBC, and I'm proposing Aspen to insure the county. We are named as an additional named insured, but that does not take place of having your own insurance. You know, there could be trespasser issues. The county could be named without the rail being pulled in, those sorts of things. So I would recommend the $5 million, $10 million option. JBC has a 2-4, and you'll also see that South Shore Freight Railroad, that is a short line entity that uses that rail, has a 10-20 with a 10-20 excess above it, but for good reason. They do a lot more business on a lot more rail than just the spur out there.
They carry. The difference is only $350. Am I reading that correct?
No.
$1,250 versus $900.
But it's just the attached, the additional.
Yeah.
5 and 18.
I think
Yeah,
it's about
25 and 18.
$8,000 difference.
Right in the middle of the front page, is where third bar down, it says premium. And below that, one says 25,000, the other says 18.
Yeah.
So it's 25,000 is the minimum premium for the larger limit, and 18. And then there's a terrorism charge that's more, it's percentage. And then there's also the Indiana surplus lines fees for filing with the state. So we're at 25, let's call it 26, almost 27,000 for option A. And we are at 18, about a little over 19 and some change for option B.
Mr. DiMartino?
Yes, so the contract with CSX, if we're not able to push it off onto the other entity, has a $5 million requirement for insurance. So just know that that's out there, which is typical with railroads. So I do not recommend the $3 million policy, because if we end up having to be a signatory on that contract, where we have to make CSX an additional insured on our policy, we want to meet the terms of that contract.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what we require as well, Guy, and if, looking at your contracts.
Yes.
So match what we require of others.
Yep.
What was the previous policy cost?
Well,
didn't-
it was part of the CGL. So now you're separating it out.
It's not broke out.
Yeah.
It's an extend. It's
Right.
an extend endorsement, they call that. It says that any property the county owes, we're gonna extend liability there. And it's part of the bigger package, which, you can't fairly even weigh that out.
This is the commissioner's decision though, isn't it? I mean, it could be a recommendation from us, but they own the property.
But I believe Matt and John might have been talking that since this is the railroad, that there might be money that could be budgeted from the TIF, one of the TIF district, to help pay the premium on this, even though it has to go to the commission for signature. So I think that's why it's been brought up to y'all.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, would know better than I if you need to approve this first or if it needs to go to both bodies. I really didn't know which direction to go in. I decided to start here.
Sure. That was a question I had as well coming into this. When I saw this earlier, I'm not fully sure if we do a motion of support now and then.
So I would recommend, it's gonna be the commission's decision,
Yes.
but I think if you
You'd like to do a
either do a
recommendation.
resolution or a recommendation or a motion of support,
Based on
that
their-
you have the ability to fund this additional insurance through your TIF.
Very good. Thank you.
With that being said, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
All right, very good.
And we have a second.
Okay, would that include the terrorism additional charge for the rider?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Which policy was the motion for?
Oh, yeah.
The 5 million, 10 million,
Okay.
the Aspen and the one that was recommended.
All right, very good. And you're good with the second on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion?
Mr. Reardon, could you remind me, what is our annual revenues for the TIDC TIF?
1 second.
Mary Jane. Right now, there's $66,000 in there, but
Yeah. It should be on our sheet here.
Mary Jane should have that.
It's the TIF disbursement is not on the financial
Not on
thing.
the
It's in the treasurer's report. And I can only go back to, and I can email it to you, for 2022, because we haven't received 2023's.
Just a rough ballpark of what we'll make this year.
Ballpark,
Over 100,000.
I was gonna say about 50,000 each disbursement, spring and fall.
Pretty steep to spend a quarter of that on insurance.
It'd be great, I think, if the commissioners could take care of that, Mr. Chairman. Just throwing it out there.
It's their rail.
I mean, just, but
It would have to
I'd
be
like to
commissioners.
thank John and Guy for the work on this because it was great timing when it all actually happened because they were pulling back on the insurance and getting a new provider that uncovered this. What are you going to do? And this has always been a question. And my response was, well, I know JBC has to have insurance. And then we got on the discussion, well, what happens if, the Redevelopment Commission is the owner of this property and the track. And, when people start, firing off lawsuits, I think the government agency is going to be at the top of the list. So I also appreciate the work done to make sure that the county was added as an additional insured by both users of the track. So I think, the end of the day, we just know that everything's covered the way it's supposed to be, especially with the end of the contract.
Thank you.
On that, I did, ask them to add primary non-contributory with waiver of subrogation, so there's no fight about who's paying. However, one of them, I think it was JVC, I don't remember if it's South Shore or JVC, they want that to be part of the contract, so it'd only be triggered if it's in the contract, so we may want to, I'm just drawing your attention to that down the line, if it needs to be amended or not. I don't remember the language right now.
We'll have to look at that.
Yeah. And then, the other piece, if you don't mind, you didn't vote, but you want to hear about this first?
It's still to do with this? Yeah, please go
The
ahead.
physical part, in the covenants that you all have from 2017, it calls for insuring the rail itself and the roadbed, the improvement. And it's about $1 million a mile, so it's at 3.5 million for that 3.28 stretch right now, which will change after the new construction project. They'll have to be added on another mile or so. I don't know if it'll still be under minimum premium. There'll be no charge. I haven't crossed that yet. Just as a little notice ahead of time. Part of the county's dilemma is going to be for the commissioners, two of them here, is that if we don't stay with Chubb, and you want to insure that rail, it's scaring off some of the other competitors that want to cover the county. There are many that will exclude rail and exclude fairgrounds. So that's a balance I have to deal with. And right now we've got Travelers that was doing both. Travelers will continue to do the fairgrounds on the liability side. But if we don't stay with Chubb, I don't know if Travelers doesn't want to do the rail for the physical damage, and I don't know if Liberty Mutual will or any of the others that I'm entertaining right now. And unfortunately, I'm still waiting for some of that to hit my desk. I'm pushing hard to get that done sooner than later for the commissioners. This quote I asked for to do a standalone through Markel was a lot saltier than I expected it to be. For 3.5 million physical with a $25,000 deductible, they're at north of $18,000 just for the physical portion of it, if we did a standalone coverage there. Now, most rails, and especially the larger the railroad, the more they do it, but a lot of the government-owned rails, I'm told, reportedly, are self-insuring those rails. However, it is in your it is in your original covenants that it will be covered for replacement costs. So that's a matter for you and the attorney to decide, but it puts the county in a little jeopardy, wearing your other hat, Mr. Chairman, on who we can bring into the county. So I'm kind of balancing both things here.
Yeah,
and I wanted to let you know about this because if we stick with Chubb, we definitely don't want to go with this. Because we're getting a rate that's significantly below that. If we don't stick with Chubb and Liberty Mutual doesn't want to entertain it, then we've got a problem where we'd have to come back and probably take a standalone policy for that rail unless you tell me otherwise.
Mr. DiMartino?
So you're going to have to look at that and look at those numbers when we get the quote back from Chubb. But the issue with Chubb and the issue with all these is we're going to run up against co-insurance issues because we don't have the valuations for the properties yet and they're not giving us a blanket, right?
Yes.
And we can't cure this by May.
Correct.
So it's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah, well, we can cure the 3.5 million. I'm satisfied that 3.5 million is where it needs to be. I've talked to enough experts, and originally I got that number from Jim Thompson, who was on this board or was a consultant to this board as a train master retired train master from South Shore Freight. And when I talked to the underwriter who does nothing but write rail, she said that still holds $1 million per mile. So we're at 3.5 for 3.28 miles with 7 switches and et cetera, et cetera. I think we're where we need to be. And I also think there's not much going to happen out there unless somebody else does it and they're going to fix it. There's no flood coverage, there is earthquake coverage. And on the Chubb policy, they're not going to cover it for flood either, but they will for earthquake and all other risk.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll just hold this and then decide as we approach the next week or two. We could have I guess I could put that on. If we decide to choose someone who doesn't want to do the rail, then I'll have to add this in with the quote for the county at that point. I guess is the remedy.
Okay. And do we, before we call for a vote on the motion that's on the floor, is there any other discussion? Mr. Cooley?
Yes. What exactly is the motion?
Sure. You wouldn't mind restating your motion?
I lean back that way. It was a motion to recommend the 5 million, 10 million policy with all of the, with the federal.
Terrorism.
Right, yeah, right, with all of the riders on it and then the state.
And who is in that motion? Are we determining who's going to pay for it?
No.
Okay. We're just going to support.
Because it's a motion, first of all, we don't get to choose the policy, so we can then take a look at who's gonna pay for it later.
This is just in support of having the insurance.
Yes. And
Thank you.
We're not offered to do anything then.
Very, very good. All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Reardon.
39 North update. We still need a water tower. I have a lead. They would like to buy 40 acres of the Anacostia property, and they're down to 2 sites in Indiana. This is one of them, and I'm confident that the prevailing entity, be it 39 or the city, will build a water tower. There would be adequate funds from the TIF district that would be available to help cost share for this project. And I would look for a decision from this entity within the next 2 months. They've exercised an option, and they've done site planning. They need rail. There's rail in the back. All those things that we've talked about many times are all still true. There still needs to be a water tower. I checked with 39 North. They do not have the current capacity to serve it, which would mean there needs to be a water tower constructed, and an entity, whoever that is, would need to provide more water and do the tower and own it and operate it. That's all the update I have on 39.
In the scenario of cost sharing, what percentage do you see the RDC or the TIF district covering of that?
You know, Commissioner, I guess that would depend on what the company would be looking for in the way of assistance, I guess is the way I put it. They were kind enough to tell me their other location, so I quickly did an analysis of the other location versus this location, and having a far lower tax rate put this particular property in a very good light. Then I tacked on a $5 million water tower to the challenge. Company didn't say they were not willing to financially participate. They understood the difference in the tax rates, and they were going to be determining, is the value of the location long-term of benefit to them in comparison to their additional transportation costs they've identified as a concern. The site's very favorable. They get to pick which electric utility they want to use. They have the rail built in. My guess is the price is right because it's owned by the rail company. So that's where we stand.
Very good.
Would that,
Mr. Park?
would that benefit the Conservancy District if that came in there? I mean, as far as their issues right now with the city, or would it sway it one way or the other? I mean, would that help them in their cause?
You know, somebody needs to go into debt for $5 million.
Right.
I'm not abdicating that the county go into debt for $5 million. So that decision would have to be made by, like I said, an entity, whoever that be, 39 North or the city. I know there was a lot of deliberation about annexation. De-annex the property, remove the benefit of the difference in the tax rate. They'll stay where they're going to go. There's no need to. It doesn't work if it's $3 at our location and it's $3 at the other location. You know, transportation costs will trump why you would be out there. Even with a probably more competitive electric rate from AEP than you're going to get from NIPSCO. So the numbers probably won't work out. So
this company use a fair amount of water, or is the question only for fire suppression?
No, they use over 300,000 gallons a day. So it's pretty sizable user. And yeah, it needs a water tower. That's what's up with this particular project. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you. And finally here, 3594 TIF.
No update. Like I said, the route analysis has been completed. I'll provide the copies of that. to them. Not quite sure where the city of Michigan City is going to land on further deliberations about the county extending their utilities so they can get more customers. But we seem to be, I guess some of that will be sorted out next Tuesday to see how that comes down. But I'd recommend that we continue discussions with Patrick. I know that they're still interested in doing it. It's a great project, a good location, and somebody who has the financial wherewithal to do it, and also has the understanding of how any tax increment finance bonds would be used, and the purposes they would be used for is extending the utilities. Straightforward. The other part of that is, the council participation in running sewer and water out there as well. So there's a lot of reasons to continue with the project, the least being some kind of combative relationship between the Michigan City utilities and the county entities. That's all I have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Reardon? No.
Nope,
All right.
new business.
All right, very good. Yeah, under new business, we have our consideration of the Love's easement for the NIPSCO utility pole placement. So
Motion to approve.
very good. We have a motion.
Second motion.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Basically, we're just moving the pole so we can keep the project going.
Yeah, I brought this up last meeting, and we got the signatures, and
There's a drawing in here.
I got all the signatures. Now it's your time to sign, basically. So we get this going. We had pushed the sewer further west on 300 North. This was the obstacle. So that's AT&T. AT&T's on NIPSCO poles. NIPSCO's moving them. Part of this easement agreement is allowing other utilities than just the water and sewer to be in the easement, specifically on the Love site, because that's where the conflict is. So this will allow that. So as soon as you guys sign and I get it notarized, I will deliver it, and NIPSCO get going at AT&T. So
Very good. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. Any other business before us today?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night.